Good day, everyone, and welcome to the show. Hey, so do a mic check, Rhett. I know it's your first time using this software. Mic's not working. Had to do this with Jay too. Check push that little gear down there and check to make sure that it's let me see what I had to do. Check to make sure that your audio input is changed from default. That's what I had to do to make sure everything was going good. All right, do a mic check. Still not able to hear you. I wonder. Did you change the audio input? Hmm. I'm gonna have to get that fixed. Let me see. Okay, go to the Zoom. We'll test your audio there. Let me make sure that I got my headset set up to the right thing. That's what it could be. Yeah, my headset's set up to the right thing. Head to the Zoom. Oh, there you go. Got some sound going on there. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There you go. Let's see. I'm turning your volume up a little bit. Okay. Well, a little delayed, but welcome to the show, everybody. With me, your host, Andre Pace, and my co-host, Rhett Williams. We are using a new software, as you guys seen with the first episode of Jay hosting our news program. This is our new uh, software that we're going to be using, and so we're just working out a couple of the kinks and things like that. But this is, of course, our casual Saturdays episodes where we get to talk about whatever it is that we want to talk about, instead of having to focus on relevant news. With that, uh, being along the thing here, I wanted to start things off with yeah a simple, I guess you could say, review sort of issue. Um, Rhett probably hasn't watched it. I've only been watching it because I don't know, maybe I like to torture myself, but you know, I'm a fan of the work of Professor Token. I decided I was going to be fair and give Amazon a chance with this Rings of Power nonsense they call television, and it is the worst thing I've ever watched in my life. I don't know if you've watched it, Rhett. I know this isn't your type of thing, that type of fantasy, but it is the worst nonsense I've ever watched in my life. And this past episode, episode 5, this is where they said, the whole thing was a big fu to Tolkien's lore, but this episode is just blatantly a big fu to the fans of Professor Tolkien. Massive fu to the fans of Professor Tolkien. Uh, so basically, they come up and they say that, well, Mithril, which, by the way, if you recall from Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, when they go to the mines of Moria, the secret door, it was a door that was made by Celebrimbor, who's in this show, and it translates to elf friend, or the password is friend in Elvish. And so it was made by Celebrimbor to signify the friendship between the elves and the dwarves way back in the first age. So Mithril was already something that they had created. It was already found, discovered, and there's two places in Middle Earth where Mithril is discovered and mined regularly. One is the mines of Moria, and two is Numenor. So these two places have Mithril, and the first stage is full of it. Most of the elves of Gondolin had the weapons and stuff from the first stage, and it was all forged of Mithril and enchanted by the elves to glow blue or white when orcs are near. And so what they decided to do with this one is they said, well, fuck all of that. Mithril is now this is literally what they decided to say, that on top of Moria, on top of the mountain, there was a tree, and on one side of the tree there was an elf who had who was so brilliant that he had the eyes of Manwë, and on the other side of the mountain there was a Belderok who was so evil he had the smog of Morgoth. And inside the tree was the Silmaril, which we know what happened to all three of the Silmarils created by Feanor, and none of them are in Middle Earth anymore. And so apparently, the Silmaril is stuck inside this tree. A lightning bolt strikes the tree, and the tree's roots stretch all the way down into the mountain because of the lightning bolt, and infuses the stone with the light of the Silmaril, which is the light of the two trees of Valinor, and so the elves are going to the doors to get Mithril so that they can prolong their immortal lives. Makes no sense. It completely spits in the face of the lore. And so from this point on, I mean, I think there's only like uh, 3 or 4 more episodes left. From this point on, I would advise anybody who watches the show to just stop watching it altogether because it's complete garbage. It's not even worth watching. It is so bland, so boring. None of the characters are interesting at all. It's a spit in the face to the work of J.R. Tolkien, and it's a spit in the face to the tremendous casting and uh, writing and directing that was done by Peter Jackson. And Peter Jackson did Lord of the Rings with what, $100 million budget. This has over $1 billion, and their costumes. I could make better costumes than they can out of fucking cardboard. Like, I mean, everything looks horrible. I was watching Shea Diversity. I like watching him because of his sword reviews, and he was reviewing the armor worn by the Queen, and you can see that the budget for Amazon did not go to making this stuff believable because the armor of the Queen, it's just printed on. It's just a shirt. It's not even armor. It's just printed on. You can see wrinkles and folds in the shirt. Like, my God, you could you. Everything looks so cheap and tacky and horrible. I seen better effects in Merlin, the TV show from years ago, which I love that show. I saw better effects in Merlin than I seen in this $1 billion project of Amazon. So I would advise nobody watch it. But with that, I had to get that rant out of the way. Uh, Welcome to the show, Rhett. You seem to have been having some technical difficulties getting set up here.
I'm not really a fan of this program or website. I didn't really have an opinion before, but my first impressions aren't good. Obviously,
But
if
you
you
gotta
have problems the first time you switch to something, you're gonna sour on it pretty quickly.
you gotta play with it a little bit.
I'm still trying to solve the mystery of why I can't hear myself through my headphones like I could when I was using the Mac. Because I'd really prefer
It's
to be
prob
able to hear myself.
it's probably because you turned it off. I was wondering why I couldn't hear myself through my headset. Well, I was wondering why I could hear myself, and it turned out that when I was in my work application, because I always switch my computer over to my work application, I had turned on listen to this device uh, in my audio settings, and I forgot to turn it off. So every time I was using my microphone, I was hearing myself through my headset, and that isn't usual. And so when I went in there and looked at it, I'm like, oh, I forgot to turn off the listening to my device portion. And so when I'm
Where
hearing,
do you find that setting?
uh, go down to your audio settings, click on the little audio thing. Uh, you're gonna click on that. You're gonna go to, and when you're in the system sound, you're gonna go down to more sound settings, and it's gonna pop up, and you're gonna click on that tab that says recording, and find your microphone, and
Wait, hold on. Sound. Are you this is Windows you're talking about, right?
yeah. So
Okay.
you click on
More
sound,
sound setting.
more sound settings, and then you're gonna click on that recording tab, find your microphone, right click it, click on properties, and then go to listen, ch- check listen to this device, and then hit apply. And so once you do that, you should be able to hear yourself.
Hello. There we go. Huh. You're a magician, sir.
Yes, indeed. I know I'm brilliant.
I didn't know. I had no idea it was that simple.
It's always the simple things that give geniuses the hardest times, right?
That's 100% true. But now there's like a millisecond lag between when I talk and when I hear it. So it's weird.
You'll get used.
Or maybe it's just because I'm not used to it. Like I've just been doing it without hearing myself for so long.
You'll get used to it. It caught me off guard too. 'Cause I was playing my game. When I play my game, I hear myself through these headsets. This is plugged into my sound box because I use my sound box when I'm playing the game. I'm using my sound box right now actually because it works better on streaming services than it does on Zoom. And normally I hear myself through these, and then I was hearing myself through these. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And people were in the chat room and in the video game, like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I don't know. What the fuck's going on? Why am I hearing myself in my head? Have I died and become God? And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to myself, and the next thing you know, I'm hearing everything in my head. I'm like, oh God, this is like I don't know what's going on here. And so about 3 or 4 days after that, it dawned on me. Go check the sound settings and see uh did I have my listen thing on? And that's what I did. I'm like, oh, this is the reason why, because I always did it when I was in my work system, testing my headphones, testing my microphones and stuff like that when I do meetings and stuff in the mornings. But and it alarmed me, so you'll get used to it because it alarmed me. But you'll pick up on
I
it.
was used to it before. It does seem like there's a slight delay though.
There is because it's picking up your voice, especially if yours is on. Most of these are sort of on uh, voice activated. It's usually at a low volume, so the microphone's not picking up anything until you start speaking, and then it'll start to try to speed it in. So sometimes it does do that, but so I understand you discovered some things about yourself, Mister Hamilton.
So I guess I thought I had done the free trial on Ancestry before, but apparently I hadn't. So I'm trying to get as much as possible done before the free trial runs out because I'm not going to pay $40 a month.
Was it $40 a month? I thought it was a one-time thing, and they send you a kit
Well,
in the mail.
it's two different services. It's the same company, but like, okay, take a DNA. Ugh, man, I can't. This delay is pissing me off. I'm just trying to get used to it. All right. So you have to order a kit to take the DNA test. That's $99. It is a one-time thing, and you just get access to all the like, like they give you traits and matches, and they give you like a breakdown of what your ethnicity would be according to their database. But if you take tests with, there's so many different services you could use or companies you could go through. Prices usually about the same, but some are significantly more because they give you more data. But the the family tree stuff is a whole different part of the website. And to get access to all the records, you have to pay. But you get a 14-day free trial. And there's one that's like $30 a month, which is just like national, I guess, for one country. And the $40 a month is the World Explorer.
Hmm, that's interesting. I've never been too curious about my heritage or my lineage, so I suppose I should give it thought. Who knows? Maybe I could be related to a king, and I can go back to Africa and take over.
Hold on. I got to go change this. It's distracting.
Have you given up on it that quickly?
Yeah. I guess I just got so used to not hearing that I don't I don't really like it
It's
anymore.
okay, Rhett.
I don't know
Not
why.
everybody likes to have voices in their head.
Dude, okay. Property. What the hell?
That was me.
What was
That
that?
was me. I got all these buttons here on my on on my sound box. I never get to use because I never used the sound box when we were on Zoom.
Bruh, you don't even need a sound box. Like, why do you have a sound box? It's totally
Because I
unnecessary.
can do things like this. I can change my voice. I can change the tune of my voice. I can be God if I want to.
But how is that practical for podcasting? It's
It
not.
is practical, cause see, I got my bass and treble turned up, so it makes my voice a little bit more mellow. But if I turn off my treble and then I just have a whole bunch of bass, which works for me, but it's still not real. And this one here, it just sounds lower quality. So I always turn up my bass and treble as far as they'll go. Sometimes I'll turn the treble down just a little bit lower because I do have a naturally deeper voice than I do have a higher voice, and so it gets a nice little balance there. But it also
You do have a cheap. You have a cheap mic, don't you?
no, it's well, it came with the setup, and I bought the whole setup, the whole system thing for like I don't know, like $60 on Amazon. Get
Yeah,
the
that's a
get
cheap
get the
mic.
sound
Big deal.
box and the microphone and all this stuff together. But I want to get a new one because this one starting to piss me off because this right here, I keep having to deal with this little problem here, and
You need to
I'm
get like a legit
I want to
like
get
this right
one.
here
I want to get
is
one that doesn't have such a long wire.
uh, what are you talking about? They all have wires.
No, I know they all have wires, but the problem I'm having with this microphone is lately the back end here by the connector, it keeps bumping into stuff and it keeps making this breakup feed. And so I want to get something that doesn't have this long attachment on the back end of it. I want it to be a little bit better quality, so that way I don't have to deal with it bumping into stuff.
This is a Blue Yeti Nano. I think it was like 80 or $90.
Yeah, this one's a
It's a
BM
pretty, I
800.
mean,
It's an entry level microphone. I want to get a condenser microphone too. I got a section for it here on my sound box, but I don't have a condenser microphone. So who knows?
um a lot of professionals use, I mean, real professionals, you'll see a lot of content creators using Yetis, Blue Yetis, different kinds of Blue Yetis because they're pretty much good enough to where you don't really have to upgrade after that, but you still, a lot of people do. But like real sound people probably would use something a lot more expensive, but it's good enough to be used for professional settings, though.
So tell us a little bit more about the Rhett family line.
The Rhett family, that's definitely not the name. It's
Oh,
the first name, sir. So I actually, one thing that delayed me a little bit is because, like I said, I'm trying to just fill this out as much as I can. But
you delayed my
with when it
show to
comes to
fill out
genealogy
paperwork.
and what?
I said you delayed my show to fill out paperwork.
I mean, it's not really paperwork, but
How dare you?
so let's see how many people I've got in the tree right now. It was 522 the last time I checked, but it's more than that now. Because there's really no end when you start doing this. It's 540 people on the tree now. There's no end to it. You could just keep going forever. And this is also not taking into account most of the people that are like, for instance, if I have an ancestor and I'm related to one of them, but they have siblings, most of the time I don't include the siblings because that's way too much. Like I would just be stuck in one spot, just listing people forever. But if there's a particular branch that I want to follow, then I will. So I was looking at, so the only actual branch that I can't follow is the Williams branch, because my grandfather, Thomas Orion Williams Sr., is really the first of, like, I'm actually not related to any other Williamses besides my close family, like my uncles and cousins, first cousins, and grandfather. That's it. All the other Williams is that's a completely different, very distantly. I mean, obviously, everyone's distantly related, but the only Williamses I'm related to are my immediate, like right next to me on the tree. You get what I'm saying? The descendants of Thomas Orion, which is my grandfather, because we recently discovered that Alfred Orion Williams, the man that we thought was his father, is not his father. And we don't know who it is. So we can't, and whoever it is, their last name wouldn't be Williams anyway. So yeah, my grandmother or my great grandmother cheated on him. So there's nobody alive that knows who it could be. So the only way we could find out is through a Y chromosome test. And none of us have done one yet, but eventually it will happen. But I was able to trace all the other branches pretty far back. So I started with my grandmother, so my dad's mom. I'm, she goes by Lorraine, but her name is really Judith Lorraine, and her adoptive name, last name is Richards, but she's not a Richards. Um, her father basically completely just walked out of her life when she was, before she could remember. And several times throughout her life, she tried to get in contact with him. And one time she called him. And as soon as he found out who it was, he hung up the phone. And he went off and had a family, and she has other half siblings, but they basically deny her existence. They don't want to acknowledge that she exists and that their father had another kid that he abandoned. But he did, and I know his name, so I could follow that line. And his name is Sydney Aquila Cuevas. And her mother is Juanita Ladner. And so that's the branch that connects me to, like, the founders of the coast, like every family on the coast. The Cuevases and the Ladners are, once you start going back, it's like Cuevas married a Ladner or a Socher or a Nikes or a Lozana. They're all in the same branch. So followed Sydney Aquila to Sydney Joseph. And I know that the last name Cuevas is Spanish. So I wanted to see if I could follow it all the way back to Spain. And I did. And apparently, this guy is actually known. Like, his name is on the sign on Cat Island. And I didn't know anything about him. But the first to come over here from Spain was Juan Jose Cuevas. He was born in 1762. He was the lighthouse keeper on Cat Island during the War of 1812. And I got a few generations before him, 1710 to, oh man, what's his name? Martin Lopez de Cueva. So That was the first thing I discovered that I was really looking for. But later on, actually, it was earlier today, like this morning, I was actually on the same branch of my family tree through Sydney Aquila, and I don't remember who it was that I traced one of the Zeno Cuevas, which would be my third great grandfather, married Josephine Socher. And that family goes back to a family of French Canadian explorers. And the patriarch of their family was Charles Socher, and he was an organist at St. Eustace Catholic Church in Paris in the court of King Louis XIV. So Josephine Socher, let me see if this is the correct line. John J. Socher. It's really, let me just do this on my phone. It's so much faster. It's just lagging on the computer. No, I take that back. So Sidney Aquila, my grandfather, his father was Sidney Joseph Cuevas. He married Bertie Wedgeworth, and Bertie Wedgeworth's grandmother, Minerva Terrell. I followed that line to Prudence Beals, which would be my seventh great grandmother. It's a whole lot better than just saying great, 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 great. That's how they list them, because after like two greats, I'm just done listening. Most people don't even really pay attention to that anyway. So, seventh great. Prudence Beals, my seventh great grandmother. I followed the Beals family back to England. And then I hit William Beals, married to an Elizabeth Ingalls, who I could not find a father for. So I'm assuming that she wasn't illegitimate. But her mother's name was Elizabeth Hamilton. But this is 1519. So I figured, I wonder where this line will go. So I traced that line to a Sir James Hamilton, born in 1475. Then I had to follow that line all the way back to Sir David Fitzwalter in 1310, and discovered that there are actually two branches of Clan Hamilton from Scotland, and that they split off at this guy, Sir David Fitzwalter. I don't know why his name is not Hamilton, but this is the guy who was the patriarch of that family. So one branch became the Hamiltons of Grange, and the other branch became the Hamiltons of Cadzow and Lanarkshire, Scotland. So I had to follow the Grange Hamiltons. This was really a lot of work, this one. But I followed this. David Fitzwalter is my 19th great grandfather. That's like almost 800 years ago. But anyway, so I discovered that I am related to Clan Hamilton, both branches on both sides of my family, but on this side, it's a lot more distant. But I eventually did get to James Alexander Hamilton and the Alexander Hamilton on my dad's side, 13th cousin, removed by 7 generations, which is, that's pretty distant, but I still found it. So it was close enough that it wasn't too much work, but that's pretty far. So I thought I was done, but so I went to my mom's side. My mom's dad, grandfather, his mother was a Jackson, and this would be my fourth great grandmother, Carter McCord. It's a Scottish name. Followed this, not really that much further after her, and I came upon a Robert Cooper, my seventh great grandfather, married to a Jane Hamilton, my seventh great grandmother. And Jane Hamilton's father was William Hamilton. William Hamilton was the brother of James Alexander Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton's father. So, William Hamilton, my ninth great grandfather, ninth great grand uncle, is the father of Alexander Hamilton. So that's almost direct. That's a first cousin removed by 9 generations. But it didn't stop there. What actually took me a little bit longer is because through also the same branch, through the same person, my grandfather, his mother, I was going down a different, which branch was it? Elizabeth Lewis. I don't know if this is the right branch. I got to find out. No, it's not. No, it's also through my Mahalo McCord, my fourth great grandmother. So this is the same family. McCord. So, where did I follow that one? Oh, yes, James McCord. This is, he was actually born in Northern Ireland. My seventh great grandfather, his great grandmother was Marie E. Buchanan. So, of course, I had to, anytime I see a last name that is familiar, I have to search it because who knows what I could find. So, I happened upon a John, which John the First, First Lord of Blair Lusk. His father was George Buchanan. That would be my 12th great grandfather. So this is a long time ago. This is pretty far back there. George's son John is the one that I'm a direct descendant of. But George also had a son named George. George Jr., I suppose. And George Jr. had a great great grandson named James Buchanan. So that's President James Buchanan is my fourth cousin, 9 generations removed. Also, I just discovered this right before we started streaming.
So, a lot of family history in the Williams family. Well, not so much the Williams part of the family, but
Yeah, I wish I could trace that one back, but I will be able to eventually.
that makes me wonder what I'd find. But the problem of mine is Heck, there's not too many people left alive that even know. Who-
Well, let's be clear here. It's pretty hard. If you don't even have names, then it's kind of difficult.
yeah, like there's not a lot of people left alive that know uh, who
And it's
my
not as
great
easy because
grandfather
you,
is, who my grandfather is. Don't know who that person is. Don't know who. I know my my grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side. I know my great grandfather on my dad's side, but on
well,
my
you need that might be enough. I mean, it's so you, it's counterintuitive. You don't even have your father's name, and you said he doesn't even have his father's name.
no, he has his
So it's
father's name.
he does.
Yeah, I don't. What I don't have is my on my mother's side. I don't have my grandfather's name or my great grandfather's name or well any of the men on on my mother's side of the family. We don't have any information. I mean, I'm pretty sure my mother knows who he is. I don't know his last name though. And when it comes to my grandmother, no, she doesn't remember either.
I didn't have a whole lot of information starting this. I mean, I used a lot of it, just gives you so many hints and public records to access. I just knew a couple of names and I went from there.
Hmm. But given the fact that on my father's side, my great grandfather would was named. I think his last name was Thompson or Thomas or something like that. Can't remember exactly. I was at his funeral. Uh, I would have to suspect that somewhere down the line, and that generation of Thompsons or Thomases or whatever they are, that eventually I probably led to Clarence Thomas or whoever. Just because there's, Thomas is such a common last name. Yeah, that could take you forever to dig through the Thomases.
And there's actually a lot of online resources that, like, the further back you go in time, well, I don't want to say that. After you get past a certain point into the past, it gets easier because there's more people who have that ancestor in common with you. So the likelihood that somebody else has done some work, put it online, gets higher.
Hmm. Maybe I'll give it a shot one of these days. You said it's a free trial to do all this work.
It's a 14-day free trial, yeah.
Oh,
And
geez.
so I've been doing it like just nonstop because obviously I want to get as much as I can. But I'm pretty sure I've already done, like, obviously done way more than most people do on Ancestry because you can see, I can see all these DNA matches, and most of their family trees have like one person, three people, five. I've got like 540.
I think most people just paid $100 and get it over with.
Yeah. I mean, it'll show all these people that's like, obviously, the people that are the closest related to you. Like my mom took it and it shows up. Okay. My brother and sister and grandmother and uncle and some first cousins once removed, they all show up real close. But then after a certain point, it'll be like they're guessing, maybe second or third cousin, maybe fourth to eighth or whatever. But you really don't know. It's like, I don't know who these people are, but I guess I'm related to them. And then some of them, like I click on this one right here, it'll say I have a common ancestor, and if I click on them, it'll show me who that common ancestor is. This person is estimated to be twice removed through Reuben McNair and Mary Margaret McCallum. Reuben is my third great grandfather, and his uncle was Evander McNair, the General Evander McNair. But I've always known about him. I just didn't know exactly what he was to me until I did all this.
Oh, that sounds like so much work. But for a history buff, it will be fun to do.
It's definitely interesting, especially because you really don't know what you might find. I mean, depending on where you're like, the difference is I've uploaded my raw DNA data because once you take the test, they'll let you download the raw data and upload it to other places, and it'll test it based on their database.
You've done the raw
So
DNA data.
your DNA results,
How do you do
your
that?
DNA results will be different
What do you send them in a
based on,
sample of your saliva?
yes. Well, some of them, that's how this one was. I think some of them might be a swab, like a cheek swab or something. But the DNA results will be different depending on which database you use.
Hmm.
Like this one doesn't really make as much sense to me as the genome link one because this one shows like 90 over 90 something percent like British Isles, like Scotland, England, Ireland, and 5% Germanic Europe. Okay, that makes sense. And 1% um, Cameroon, Congo, and Western Bantu peoples. But it doesn't show any like Southern Europe, Spain, Southern Italy, Greece. It doesn't show that on here, but it does show it on Genome Link. And now I know for a fact that I've got ancestors from Spain. So it's really just it's an approximation. It's a best guess because it's not an exact science.
I think what makes it a little bit easier for people in geographic locations in America is that you pretty much know where to begin looking, because if you're down in southern Mississippi, Louisiana way, you're most likely going to be related to some Spaniards or some French people, without a doubt. And the further south you get, well, further west, should I say, you get, the larger your heritage to Spain is going to be. Well, really, to Mexico, which is to Spain, is going to be because of of how our country was formed. And the further north you get, you know, um, you're going to be more and more likely to be related to somebody from Britain, particularly from Scotland and Ireland, since those were some of the poorer ones.
German, German or Dutch. That's more like the Midwest.
You know,
I
I
mean,
I do need to do one because Danny and I are cousins, and Danny's from the Netherlands, and I've never been to the Netherlands.
well, how is he like? Who is he your cousin through?
He's a cousin on a cousin's of mine. Well, let's say my we, my cousin that live right next door. Danny's father is the first cousin of their father or grandfather or whatever, and so Danny's like a
You
cousin.
just confused me so much. How is Danny's father related to you?
He'll be through marriage.
Okay, then obviously that that
I
wouldn't
think
have
I
anything to
think
do
it'll
with
be
you.
through marriage. I'm not even entirely sure how we're related to that side of the family myself. I
Well, I thought it was his mother that was from somewhere in South America.
No,
French.
Danny's from the Netherlands.
Yeah, but his mother. He told us. He told me that his mother was from some South American country that was occupied by the Dutch, and they ended up moving to the Netherlands. That's what I remember him telling me.
I don't remember that, but I have to ask. Then you go way over there, and I'm like, well, geez, you know, I spent 4 years of not college, of high school, knowing the guy, and had no idea that we were related. un-
Suriname,
until
Suriname, Dutch Guiana. Yeah,
let's be honest, until
Suriname.
until we graduated high school. As a matter of fact, found out when Danny and them came to pick me up to go, not pick me up, drop me off. I think it was because I rode down there. No, no, no. Did I? I rode down there with girls. No, no, Danny. I rode down there with girls, and then Danny and his father dropped me off, and so found out that we were related on the day of Granny of not Granny Danny's graduation party from high school. Of course,
You didn't know it during high school?
no.
Dude, why does it seem like
I mean,
I don't know.
think of it. None of you even knew where I lived during during high school. None of you even didn't even speak to anyone back
It's true. I never even saw where you lived until after, but I had an idea
then.
just because you told me.
Social's a small place. It's not that hard to find. But the fact is that there would have been no way of knowing because nobody ever seen where I lived at. Nobody ever came over to visit because nobody was ever allowed to. I was never allowed to go anywhere either. So it was just the way things were expected to be. And so then graduate and find out that you're related to one of your best friends. Like, aren't I glad that Danny's not Ivory?
So you know who David Duke is, right?
Yeah,
The white nationalist guy.
yeah. I'm a big fan of his work.
Well, obviously, if somebody's a white nationalist, people are just going to call them a racist, even if what they're saying is not necessarily overtly racist.
I've
You know,
spoken to many white nationalists, and I've never met a white nationalist that I thought was racist.
there's one. What is his name? The one who does American Renaissance, Jared Taylor. I've listened to some of the stuff he talks about. I mean,
It's
I've
practical
never heard
stuff.
him say anything like overtly racist, but it's still stuff that I don't necessarily agree with.
It's a lot of practical stuff, but then you get those people who take it so to heart serious that they become racist with their views and beliefs. Like especially that there are white nationalists that aren't racist, but they consider IQ to be everything. And it's like, well, black people have zero IQ in these particular fields, so we have to stop from the inbreeding to protect the white IQ. And then it becomes racist when you start to go through things like that because IQ is relatively relative depending on the area in which you live.
So this is really a topic that like everyone steers clear of because it's just so controversial. It's almost dangerous to talk about
But I love dating.
because there is real research behind it, but it's like you can't even discuss it because you're instantly canceled.
I laugh in the face of danger. That's the Lion King's reference.
Then no, I mean like seriously, that's like the one thing that's worse than everything else. Discussing IQ research, not just when it comes to race, in general.
But
Discussing IQ research is so combustible.
it's also based upon who you decide to follow as the primary source of information for IQ. And a lot of people uh, discredit some people because it doesn't follow what they believe, and some people refuse to even, as you
Well,
said,
I'm talking about legitimate research. There's been legitimate
oh
research
yeah,
done.
you know,
But
I
even if
think
you talk about that, it's just you can't.
the best bulk of the research was done in the '60s, if I remember correctly, maybe the '70s, and we have a really good, reasonable estimation of the average IQs all over the world, depending on the resources that were available to people, and the people who are more adaptable to change tend to have higher IQs. And well, when you take a look at it, the further north of the equator you go, typically the higher your IQ was because the conditions required that you change and adapt it at a far higher rate than people who live just south of the equator.
So basically, this is this is a thing I always say. Like yeah, there is legitimate IQ research that indicates that there might be a difference between racial groups, but when you start using that and looking through that as a lens to view people, it's you get nowhere because you can't categorize people like that and assume that the person you meet is going to be representative of the group because that's very uncommon actually. The averages the average is not a person, obviously.
Well, and
A
not
lot of people, white nationalists, will use that to judge groups as a whole, but I, I hate personally. I hate grouping people in any kind of way.
not only that, but you also run into the again the issue of geography. uh, Depending on where you are, determines the likelihood of what your IQ differences will be. For example, oh, a lot of people say, well, if Africa has all these resources, why has Africa been so poor historically? Well, Africa is geographically one of the poorest places in the world that you could have traded from during those particular times because they have really no areas where you could build a port because of how treacherous the waters were, how far above sea level they are. Uh,
Yeah, and the Nile is not navigable.
yes,
You can't. There's no river that you can get to the interior. There's they're very actually geographically disadvantaged.
and that's the
That is
that's the
probably
main
one of the
reason why
biggest.
Egypt was for so long the premier of African civilization because they had easy access to the Arab nations and to the Mediterranean, which opened them up to a higher degree of trade. But when you go to places like the Ivory Coast, the Slave Coast, the Gold Coast, and all these other places, it was just not possible for them to be able to get uh, into the water, and so the slave trade became massive in Africa because they were able to export labor as opposed to exporting resources.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's like that was really their only option. Obviously, that doesn't justify it, but you can kind of understand.
Yeah, and even then, uh, they didn't export their labor across the Atlantic in the way that people think. They exported their labor directly through the Arab nations because, again, they were unable to create vessels that were capable of being able to go across the Atlantic. Uh, uh, or not that they weren't able to create vessels, but they were unable to create ports that were able to maintain those vessels. As a matter of fact, Africa lost one of its kings, one of its high kings before Mansa Musa's time period, because apparently he had crossed over the Atlantic to go to the Americas, and this is about around the 1100s, if I remember correctly. And he died on the way back. The ship sank. Nobody, they never returned because it was just too treacherous of water to try to get back into the ports. And so, geography is everything. You take a look at the reason why Britain advanced, Greece, Rome, why they advanced so great is because they had the possibly the greatest navigable waterways in history of the world. They advanced so much because they were able to create naval forces and move goods all over the world. They were able to do commercial fishing, a whole bunch of different things that they were able to do. And the Britain's an even bigger example of that uh, because it's completely waterlogged. So I had no choice but to learn how to navigate the waterways and create interstate commerce. But a lot of people just aren't ready to accept those facts, to accept that reality. So, I mean, what are you going to do about
Another one that people don't like is the fact that it shouldn't be controversial to say this because it's also true, but actually, I understand the truth is actually pretty controversial. Um, that the average difference in IQ between men and women is not, there's no average difference between men and women's IQ, except for the fact that the flatness of the bell curve distribution.
Yeah, women tend to be more
Most
in the middle,
most men, the smartest people in the world are men, and the dumbest people in the world are men.
and women are just average. Yeah, pretty much.
Obviously, that doesn't mean that, people will take this like and run with it. That obviously that doesn't mean there's no women that are some of the smartest people in the world. Obviously there are,
But then you
but
also
this
take a
is
look at
averages.
the controversial. It shouldn't even be controversial because we know the reason why men make up the bottom part of that. Men are far more likely to take risks than women are, and those risks often involve in things that some people would consider to be low IQ that could lead to death.
Yeah,
And that's
but
the reason.
sometimes they make you fabulously wealthy.
Yes, that's the reason why men are the leaders of the world because they're able to take risks. That's the reason why men make more money than women because they do jobs that are more risky that some people would consider to be low IQ work or what has been replaced uh, by the common saying of hard labor or manual labor, physical labor.
Yeah, that's not that's definitely not all low IQ work. I know how people see it, but that's not really true.
Exactly. But that's the way they see it, and then they wonder why they don't make as much money as the people in those particular fields. Well, those people have to train in very specific fields. You take a look at some people that have to learn how to make blades at 1/100th of a millimeter, and do that at a very pristine level and a particular shape in for military contracts. You don't get to be that way by being a dumbass. You just had, so men are just more willing to accept those risks, and the heavier the risk, oftentimes the bigger the reward.
Anybody at this point who's like still parroting the whole gender pay gap myth is just, well, obviously they're just an ideologue because that has been debunked so many times.
Oh yeah, it's been debunked since before we were born, since before my parents were born.
It's just infuriating when people still just latch on to ideas that are just completely fallacious
That's
and act
why.
like they're 100% true, and then they get all passionate about it. They've convinced themselves that it's true.
Or they have to convince themselves because nobody else will. Nobody else will believe it, so they have to lie to themselves and repeat it to themselves over and over again because the more you repeat it, the more that it becomes true. And the fact is that because they do not encounter people, or they refuse to encounter people, or are in spaces where people are not allowed to encounter them with opposed ideas and facts, they never have to be challenged on their beliefs or convictions to back it up with any real evidence. And so as soon as you ask them to to provide their evidence, they crumble into pieces because there is none.
Yeah, that's why I refuse to have dialogue with people like that. Because
Oh,
really, they're just going to serve to piss me off.
oh,
And,
I love it. I love trolling them. I love
and
pissing them off.
I don't get any joy out of getting nowhere.
Oh, I get lots of joy out of making people look like fools. It's the only.
You can't, if somebody doesn't even realize they're being made a fool of, then it almost doesn't matter. Although sometimes it can be even more funny, but I don't like to have conversations just to, I'd rather get somewhere.
I try to get somewhere too, but when they aren't giving you any genuine debate or any genuine conversation, then it's just best to watch them make a fool of themselves. And the best way to do
But
it
the
is just
problem
ask
is
them to
I wish
provide evidence.
the problem is I wish I could make people not stupid. And when somebody is just refusing to acknowledge that they're wrong, it makes me angry. It makes me even more. And it takes a lot to get me to be really angry. It's easy to annoy me, but it's hard to really make me angry. But when I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall, I want to ram it.
Ram it then. Ram it with facts.
But
Make it crumble.
it's pointless to try to do that.
Make it crumble. Make it fall down. And see, I enjoy it because what I find is
Fun.
it. Well, it's fun for me because the reason why I say it is because I find it fun because when you're going around and you take a look at what we have to deal with and many of our of the crap that goes on in our day to day conversations with these leftoids. Um, what I see and what I find is it becomes more fun and more passionate for me to watch these people crumble because this is the reality of everything that they believe in starting to fall around them because you've introduced a small little crack to their supposedly fortified logic. And by introducing a small little breach, and other people are just going to come in and start throwing things down. And I've done this so much to so many people that many of them now have come back and they no longer believe in any of that nonsense. So it becomes fun to me to just blow everything out of proportion with them. And because I do it almost every night when I'm playing the game DC UO, and I'm in there playing the game every night. Me and my buddies, the Lords of Five, we're up in there. We're talking politics, we're talking science, we're talking history, and people are coming in there listening to us. They're spouting their nonsense. Somebody comes in there saying that they can power a house on a 12-volt battery, and we're like, we're sitting there like, oh, and some of the things that we say I cannot repeat, and for the sake of this program, but we go in there and we just talk and bring up so much history, and then several weeks down the line, people are coming there and said, "Oh, well, the Lords of Five, I agree with them on this, and we want to know what your opinion is on this, and how what's the housing market, this and that." And these are people that are like 17, 18 years old, and some people
They
are,
don't know anything.
but the dumbest people that we've met that we've come across have been 36, 40 years old.
Yeah, because you know what? Because they think that they're at the age that they know everything.
Yeah, and then so
There's people that are like that. I really
these young
I
folks
hate that.
these young folks come in and they listen to us talk, and I had one of these young kids come up and tell me, "Hey, listening to you go at it with these guys every night, I was able to take some of the knowledge that I learned listening to you and the Lord the Five talk. I was able to take that knowledge and use it when I went to go do uh, a scholarship exam, and I got a $50,000 scholarship because I was listening to you guys, and the answers you guys provided were some of the questions that are on my test." And so, people
That
like
actually
that,
happened.
yeah. And so people like that, it's like, okay, well, we do a good job here. We make good things. And a lot of people, some of these kids, they started off believing the same thing these 40-year-old dumbasses believe in. And then we're sitting there, we're talking, we're breaking down the numbers, we're presenting all the facts, laying out the evidence, calling people dumbasses and all other types of stuff. And then now these young folks are in there and they don't even try to follow the nonsense anymore. We've sort of engineered them to think for themselves and research everything before they just start believing garbage. And so that's the fun part. That's where the fun comes in. You get in there, you have fun destroying people, and then there's people that are watching and looking, listening, and learning, and it changes their mindsets when they start to see how foolish these other people, who are like two times their age, have become. That's the fun part.
I could see where you know that if you're helping people to get scholarships, that's different.
I remember this one kid. He was like 21 years old. He's a Hispanic. He's up in there trying to be a rapper. All this nonsense. He's probably special needs, but that didn't stop me from going at it full force with the kid. And he's in there talking about how much he dislikes Trump, and he's sitting there saying that the wall is racist and that the wall is going to kill people because if you put up a wall, you're gonna suffocate people and die. And and I remember that conversation. I told him, I said, Swag, what the hell are you talking about? Don't you have four walls around you? Have you suffocated and died yet? And he's sitting there trying to piece things together. Oh man, we had a lot of fun doing things like that. And I had this one guy come in there talking about fluoride in the toothpaste, and so it's going to kill my kids. I'm like, well, first of all, why did your stupid brother let his kid eat an entire tube of toothpaste? That sounds like negligence to me. It doesn't sound like there's a problem with the toothpaste. It sounds like there's a problem with your fucking brother letting his kids eat toothpaste. And so, we have those types of conversations and stuff. So it gets to be really, really fun, especially when all five of us are up in there going at it with the entire room. Like it'll be us three or four, because most of the time the Lords of Five are not all in at the same time. There are seven of us, but most of the time it's just me, Matt Super, and the Owl Man. We're just in there going at it with everybody. Every now and again, Jay comes in there. He's a member of the Lords of Five. He's our mascot, and he comes in there screaming, "Jay, mother, Jay!" And we're in there going at it. And so it'll be us three or four against a room of 50 people, and we're just slamming people down left or right. Oh man, it gets to be fun. When you get to do it like that, it gets to be really fun. But when I'm doing it on Facebook with those people in the Facebook group, it's it's such a chore. It's much more fun when you get to do it with voice to voice, because I can't get banned when I'm doing it voice to voice. But those people in the Facebook group is such a chore. I don't even bother going there and talking to most of those people anymore, because it's just they're they're too far gone. They're too stupid, and then I'll wind up getting banned for calling them stupid. So I just don't deal with it on
And
Facebook.
I'm not even going to address that anymore. You can't if you know what the rules are, you violate them anyway. Then you can't really complain about getting banned.
Yeah, but those aren't part of the rules. The rules of the group specifically say that
What's the
we're
platform?
that Facebook's platform doesn't say anything about calling
Yeah,
people stupid. If Facebook really believed in that, their rules and regulations, they have it on there. And Zuckerberg came out on what's his name show and pretty much said it all. But the fact is that Zuckerberg doesn't run the show.
oh,
He outsourced all of his work. So the people who are actually running the show, they just make up the rules as they go on. They target whoever they want. He outsourced all of the work. You've seen the Joe Rogan show. He outsourced everything. He just creates a platform and says, "Fuck the moderation. I'll hire an outside team. They do everything."
I could sympathize with you if you weren't. Oh, I mean, do you even know what the rules are?
Yes,
I
I've read
think
the
I've
rules.
told you. Every single social media has the same basic rules.
I've read the rules. And for example, one of my bands, the most recent one, it's it's still under review. I've been banned for right now 25 days, and it's still under review. They have never even reviewed the case. And the ban before that was I called somebody's idea stupid, and they banned me. They banned me for that. They banned me for uh, for outlining the Constitution and what the predications are for treason. They banned me for that, and
Yeah, somehow I think that there's more to
no,
it
I
than that.
literally said that under the Constitution, treason is, and I posted, I copied and pasted uh, Article 3, Section 1, no, Section 2, what treason says, and I got banned for it. And then when I did an appeal,
Well, what was it in
it was in
reference to?
reference to something that Joe Biden did. What I think it was about um but what I think this was right after the Afghanistan withdrawal. But and I've made a post about that before, but it was a much longer post when I did this one here, this writing here, complacency, morality, and insecurity. I talked about the same thing uh, on it with this one about what the Constitution says about treason, and 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 this one was about the entirety of the Democrat Party, really the entirety of Congress, uh, committing treason against America by aiding and abetting the enemies of the United States, which are illegal immigrants. And they didn't ban me for that one, but they banned me for the one talking about Joe Biden committing treason against the United States. And then when I appealed it, Facebook says that this is their rule. When you appeal something, you're not even guaranteed to get an appeal. It just goes up for them to eventually pull and say that we're going to listen to your appeal or not. So the appeal option isn't even real because they don't actually review anything for your appeal. YouTube again, we have a strike on our channel. This strike is still there from our first interview with Carl Boynton. And I went back and I watched the whole video, and we didn't say anything that was against YouTube's terms of service, except for the fact that we mentioned COVID. We didn't say the vaccine was crap. We didn't say COVID was a hoax. We didn't say anything like that. We just
There is a few things that it's best to avoid. You might be able to get away with it, but it's best to avoid on YouTube talking about the vaccine
well, see, we
in
didn't
any
even
way
talk
in
about the
COVID.
vaccine. We just asked him what was his what did we ask him? Something like what are your ideas?
COVID at all, anything about COVID, it's just best to avoid the topic entirely.
Oh, and so
But okay, so tier two of their hate speech rules includes content targeting a person or group of people on the basis of their protected characteristics, etc. With the second bullet point, mental deficiencies are defined as those about intellectual capacity, including but not limited to dumb, stupid, or idiots.
they must have just updated
If
it.
it's targeting a specific person or a group of people, but especially if it's the person that you're actually talking to.
No, if I
And I know I've told
I
you
said
this.
that
You have a really bad habit of insulting
that's not
people.
insulting
You don't
to say that you
it
people
isn't it
say that you
is
people are stupid
whatever,
for
dude.
what
I'm
you
not going
believe
to
in.
try to convince
Oh,
you that
come on. You,
calling somebody stupid is an
that's not a
insult.
fucking insult.
It's that's the definition. It's the
I
definition of an
I said to
insult.
them that you people are stupid for what you have done. Now, calling somebody's idea is an insult.
I'm not arguing this damn point
I
with you.
mean,
I'm sick of it. I'm over it.
I
I've
don't
told you this
I don't
over and over.
understand. I don't
Yes, you do.
understand.
You're just
I don't
pretending like you
understand
don't.
how somebody as
It
intelligent
might be
as you
true, but
could
you
fall for that crap.
what the hell are you
How
talking
can you
about, dude?
fall
I'm
for
just
that
telling
crap?
you that's what their rules are. Fall for
You
what?
know damn well that they get on there every single day and call
This is
everybody
not
else
about them.
stupid
This is
all
not
day
about
long.
them. How come it is that if I have something to tell somebody, I can do it without calling them something or addressing them as with a derogatory term? If I have a point to make, I make the point without attacking the
So
person.
if somebody has a stupid decision or a stupid opinion, how what do you say? Well, you that was such an unintelligent post. Is that not the same thing?
I don't comment on Facebook posts, but if I do have something to say, I will address why they're wrong and the flaws in their opinion, but I'm not going to attack them personally. It's completely unproductive and it's against the rules.
So
but I don't even do that in real life. I have nothing to gain by attacking
That's not
somebody
an attack.
personally or calling them dumb or
When you call
stupid.
something stupid,
It
that's not an
is.
attack.
That's the
If I
definition of an
said that
attack.
the Democrat Party is being stupid, that's not an attack. That's telling the truth.
That's a
It's the
statement.
truth.
If you're addressing a person that you're actually talking
And
to,
which you
it might actually be true.
which I've
But what
never
I'm
actually
saying is it's
addressed the person.
unproductive. Just
I've addressed the
this is
entirety of the people.
I've made my point. Okay. I'm just saying I have a point to make.
All I'm
It's not about the person, it's about what they said.
all I'm saying is that
I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to do it, but it's unproductive.
it's not,
And that's their
that's
rules.
nothing else.
I'm not saying I support them.
I'm not saying you support them. I'm just saying I don't understand how you could even agree with that logic.
What are you talking about? It's
To say that that's an insult.
okay. Say that okay, let's see. Let's look up what the definition of insult is. I'm not saying the Democrat way. It is, but it's addressing it to a general group. But if you're talking to a person individually, that's personal. Well, we all know what an insult is. So there's nothing else really to say about this topic. I don't ever want to talk about this ever again on a show because we brought it up so many different times and you just refuse you know it's true.
No, you know what?
You
You
just
know what?
you're trying
I
to
bring
defend
it up
yourself.
because it's 100% a case of these people that own these platforms. They outsource their work to
Oh,
these people who specifically target people that say things that they disagree with. Now,
yeah, I know
Been
they do. I know they do
I've been
that.
called several
But it
things by these people. Now, I actually reported somebody to Facebook that called me an N-word and wished my assassination. Facebook sent me a message saying that it didn't break their terms of service. So I don't want
I
anybody
get that,
telling
but I'm
me
not that
that that
that doesn't have anything to
we
do
need to
with
follow their blase rules because they don't follow their own rules.
if you want to use the platform. I'm just saying, do you know that they
Fuck
target
their
people
platform
like you? Well, how come it's never happened to me?
because
I don't
you don't
insult
talk
people.
in any to people in any groups. When was the last time
I've posted plenty.
you got into a debate with
I'm done
anybody
talking
on
about this.
Facebook?
I'm done talking about this. I'm done. There's nothing really else to say on the matter.
We we should not be folding to the compliance of these people.
I'm done talking about this.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not, I'm talking about something completely different than you are. But you're trying to make this like a general, something about the social media oligarchs in Silicon Valley. And I'm not talking about that at all because I agree with you about that.
Well, see, the reason why I'm talking about it is because we have to use their platforms. We have no choice. We run a show where a good portion of our show is talking about ideas that some people ref, refuse to allow be presented. We have a show where we discuss things that are rooted in science and reality and fact that can get you removed, that can remove your business and destroy everything. And we have seen these oligarchs destroy entire platforms because they disagree with them. What they did to Parler, they completely nuked it off the face of the internet. You probably weren't around. You probably were in the pen at the time, but I was a part of Parler. Parler was our version of Twitter, so to speak, before Truth Social came to be. And Parler basically allowed you to have free speech on an open platform. They had rules. You couldn't dox people. You couldn't uh, go after people with threats of violence. But because the Democrat Party, CNN, the media hated it, they got not Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft to nuke it off the face of the internet because they purchased their domain from Amazon. Amazon shut it down completely. Google still does not allow it on the Play Store. President Trump's True Social platform, which is another competitor to them right now, it's still not available on Android devices because Google will not allow it on Android devices. It's available on Apple devices. You can get it in an Apple store, and you can get it on an online browser, but you cannot get it on the Google Play Store as an application. You can't get Parler on either one of them as an application. So anything that comes up as direct opposition to them, we're just supposed to roll over. No, we don't do that. This is America, for God's sake. That's the reason why we do this show. It's also the reason why we stream to so many different platforms. YouTube. Got to put your. Do you have your Rumble stuff set up yet? We need to add.
What do you
Need to
need?
add that. Rumble should have some type of streaming thing to where we can add it to as a destination for this to stream to. Because this right now, this streams to YouTube. We got it going on live on Twitter. It's live on. It's not live on the Facebook pages because it's still gonna be banned. But it goes to Twitter. I got it on Twitter, YouTube. It's going to the Facebook pages. It'll go to wherever else that we need to put it on. But we have to use alternatives to these conglomerates because they will never stop until they're the only voice that can be heard. And so what I'm looking for, let me check here. Uh, it's called a RTMP, and so it's a stream key. Let me see if I can find the one that I have here for YouTube because that'll make it easier for me to help you find it because we do need to add that thing. Let's see. Basic info.
What the hell, man?
Let me,
It says live streaming is available on all paid
wait,
plans or for accounts with more than 100 subscribers.
but you have to pay
What the
to use live streaming on Rumble.
or have 100 subscribers or more.
Let me see what this is.
Well,
I'm looking at something here. Hmm. Well, we'll have to figure out something with the Rumble. That's a shame. You gotta have. Well, we do need to get
why the
these.
hell would I? Why would I pay for Rumble? Like, what the hell?
There's got to be another way.
Yeah, I have 100 subscribers. How much it is? Pro packages. Basic package, $10 a month. Ad-free viewing experience, which I don't even watch Rumble. So unlimited live streaming. That's about the only thing we care about, and I don't think it's worth $10 a month to just live stream on Rumble when we don't have any subscribers on Rumble yet.
Hmm.
Starter package, it's really, there's no point in going past that. I mean, I'm not paying $10 a month for Rumble right now when no one's even going to be watching on there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wonder, can we stream the Truth Social? Because if it's like Twitter, we should be able to. And I'm streaming on Twitter right now. I'll figure
It
it
says
out.
that this is an article from 2021. They're supposed to add streaming.
What, Truth Social or Rumble?
And this is another article from May 14th, 2022 that says they are to enter the streaming space. I somehow don't think that they have streaming.
I don't think that Truth Social has it yet. I haven't seen it. I'll Google some information about it. I'll find something out. But we definitely we have to start using these alternative platforms. You know, we have things like Odyssey and D Live and all these other stuff. But we have to start using these alternative platforms because, you know, particularly when we're doing shows, when we're doing, you know, interviewing people, I don't like dancing around the questions because these are important questions that have to be answered. Especially because a lot of the things that we've been talking about lately have been what you would consider what they would consider to be conspiracy theory, even though it's not. It's just blatant conspiracy. And so a lot of the questions that we have to ask, you know, I don't like having to skirt around the
No,
topic.
obviously nobody likes it, but the thing is, that's where the people are. And Rumble is just, there's not a lot of people on Rumble yet. There's more people on Rumble than any of the other alternatives, but YouTube and the major platforms is where the people are.
Yeah.
And YouTube, honestly, you can say a lot on YouTube. There's just a few things that you have to skirt around. But unfortunately, that's the situation that we're in
Well,
right now.
the biggest problem with YouTube came when they decided to make their platform a child platform. So when I think this was like 2018 or something like that, when the new CEO took over or something, and they changed the rules to where now when you upload videos to YouTube, you have to decide whether or not your show or your YouTube videos are kid friendly or not, and that will impact what type of views or how often they will recommend your videos. So by being kid friendly, they put you in a bunch of other things. But clearly, what we talked about has no reason for children to even be watching because they don't matter at this point. When they
That's
get older,
why I
they'll
tell
matter.
you to try not to cuss so much, especially in the first, because there's something about the algorithm that if you curse too much in the first like 10 minutes, then it demotes the stream or the video for some reason.
It's probably because of
But
they.
after that, it's I guess it's because the AI doesn't pick it up after that. The less you do it, the better.
But they've got a lot. They've got a lot
I
of
was
quirks. I
looking on
mean,
here for.
you can't say particular words that involve. Uh, well, you can say ass, but you
Well,
can't
you
say
can't. You know what you
words
can't say?
that
You
that.
can't say like grape.
Yeah, yeah, you can't say that. Well, you
Mm.
can if you're if you're a different type of thing. You hear people who were much bigger get away with saying it all the time. But you can't say, like, for example, when I say you can say ass, you can't say other terms for a person's behind.
Yeah, I don't know. You're not really supposed to. Obviously, you can't call for violence, but there's no context that you can do that in. Even if the context is not where you're actually calling for violence. If it sounds like you're calling for violence, the algorithm will pick it up because it's an AI, and AIs don't understand context.
You can
They
call
just
you can call I probably shouldn't say this. You can
if you
call
should
I'm not gonna say the word, but you can call for it if it's targeted towards white people or Republicans until something happens in the news and you get caught, then YouTube has to go and delete your channel. Because we've seen that happen multiple times.
if it's an AI, I wouldn't even risk it. Which it is. That's what the algorithm is. You're not. I've actually heard someone. It was in a context that it was okay. It made sense to me, but he actually was saying that about what you would have to do to specifically right wing people. If you ignore them, eventually, what he said is you will have to them. And he wasn't saying it like he wanted to do it. He was saying it like that's what that's what you understand what I'm saying? Like that's what they would have to do eventually if they keep ignoring people. And they cut the stream. So in any context, it's not okay.
They cut our stream once. Remember when we were doing that show and we were doing the reaction to that video with the angels or whatever. During that video, they cut our stream while we were doing the
Angels.
yeah. Remember you were doing the video with the angels and it was showing what angels actually look like.
Oh,
They
yeah.
they're cut our stream for copyright. Uh,
Yeah, probably because I wasn't pausing. It's see, stuff like that is supposed to be okay because it's fair use for commentary. But if you don't pause it enough, it'll pick it up. You got to pause it and then talk about it every. I don't know how.
you know,
I guess it's like 30 seconds.
I'm not even sure if I agree with what they did with us on that one, but I mean, obviously I have to because they did it. But um, before we started doing these shows like this live on YouTube all the time, I used to do some YouTube shows where I would just come up in here and I go and I watch videos of Walter Williams, Thomas Sowell, or Milton Friedman, and I'd sit there and watch an hour-long video with with my viewer base, and never got a copyright strike for it.
When was that?
January, maybe February. It was this
I have
year.
no idea. Sometimes the algorithm just doesn't detect it, but usually I think it does.
And it, and there's
Sometimes it's almost immediately.
and there's never any point in actually appealing it because they don't actually watch any of your videos. When you say that you appeal it, they'll just say the algorithm was correct, and so we're just going to leave it there. And they never actually watch any of your stuff.
It's pretty convenient to actually have the stream because you don't have to go back and upload the stuff.
I do have to go back and upload it. I have to go back.
What?
I have to go back and upload it to Anchor.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about Anchor.
Yeah, it's convenient for Facebook and for YouTube, and
Because that's what takes so long.
not really.
If it's just an audio file, then
What
it doesn't take that long on Anchor.
what takes long on Anchor is how much time it took to get the audio file to download. Especially because I started using the video file instead of the audio file. Um, it just takes so much longer period of time because I have to wait for the video to convert into audio and video when I'm downloading things recording on Zoom. And then on many cases, it just ate up so much space on my hard drive. That's the main reason why I wanted to switch over to doing this is because it's ate up so much space on my hard drive that I think this is just better because I use
Why
this.
does it take you that long to convert the file to audio?
Yeah, because it's a huge file. Many of these files that convert, uh, and what if an episode of ours that might be an hour and a half long, that's sometimes 7 gigabytes. Some of the longer episodes,
Yeah, I would take condense that.
some of the longer episodes that I've done with Jay, like one of our Christian episodes was like 5 hours recording, and that one was I think like 12 to 15 gigabytes. And
Yeah,
when
you have to
when you've
condense
done
those.
when you've done as many of them as we have, because right now, looking at my files, um, I have over 50 episodes. Uh, but I think over at this point, I think it's over 100 because I have 3 seasons, and so we're over 100 episodes. And on my computer, I just have so many files that I've run out of space. I mean, this season, every episode that we've done this season has totaled more than 230 gigabytes of data from that we've recorded through Zoom. And so it just and Zoom uh, downloads it at a higher quality than what this would. So when I download this file, I can just take it and put it directly to the stream. I don't even have to really download it. I can download it in the browser and not have to worry about keeping it on my platform. Plus, it stays in a compartment on this account where I can always go and pick it up and find it at any time. And I think what makes it easier for me using this one is you see how I have the title up there? Well, when this stream is over, it's automatically recording this stream, and it's going to name the stream the episode title that I named it. And that makes it easier because when I do Zoom, I have to go back and it doesn't name those episodes. It it dates them. So I have to go back and change the name of each individual date to the episode title so that I can, not get lost when I'm looking for stuff. And that's the reason why it took so much time with Zoom. It's just it took a lot more energy, a lot more time. And then before you came along, I actually did a lot more video, not video, but audio editing with my WavePad editor, which I don't do anymore. And that took a lot of time too because I have to go in there and adjust levels. And when I would curse, I would go and I would bleep it out. You know, I don't do any of that anymore. Maybe I should get back to bleeping myself. You know,
It would just be easier not to cuss.
I could bleep myself with this every time
It's
I
annoying.
every time I get ready to curse, just put that
Just
beep in there. But I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with cursing. Some of the best shows on YouTube do it. One of my favorite shows on YouTube, The Angry Video Game Nerd, wouldn't be what he is today without a few f bombs every episode. But then again, he's a legacy channel though. They started off way back in the beginning days of
they
YouTube.
can get away with anything. Newbies can't. That's why I'm saying we have to we're not to the point where we have to take those kinds of liberties.
Nah, that's true, but we shouldn't give away any either. We have to play a very specific musical chairs if we want to let the algorithm do the work for us when it comes to suggestions and feeds. I think the biggest thing that we have to worry about though, Rhett, is tags. I have not gone back to any of our episodes and tagged them. And so what I mean by tagging,
Ooh, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, we need to. We need to tag
Yeah, that's like a
that'll pick up our search, make us,
that's a given. You have to tag it. If you don't, then there's no way to search.
it gets tagged by what I put in here. Like right now, content type is podcast talk show. When I do the news thing, I change it to news and media. But I need to start going into the actual YouTube stuff, changing all of that, and tagging it uh, while the show's streaming. So we're gonna get better at all of that stuff.
On the YouTube videos
Yeah, on the YouTube video
specifically,
specifically.
dude, I can probably sit there and think of so many tags.
And so
I don't know.
that's what we got to do. We just got to start tagging everything.
Well, I think we're about done.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty mellow episode, and we got to learn a lot about the Rhett family line.
Mm, yeah, except for that brief period of like 10 minutes.
That wasn't bad. That was necessary drama. It builds character, Rhett. You'll get used to it.
I think we were talking about two completely different topics though,
We might have been. I was
and
I
they
was
overlap a little bit.
I was more focused on not so much the fact that I was banned, but the fact that the oligarchy stuff that we can't cave into the oligarchy. But the ban is only 5 more days, so we'll be back to normal then.
Already.
Yeah, yeah, after a month, and it's you know I know this is probably not the best time, but the only thing that pisses me off about this latest ban is that it says it's still under review. All the other ones, once they banned me, they sent me back a message saying, yeah, it violated terms of service, and they closed the case down and couldn't appeal it because they had already did it and it was closed. And then I'd just be banned for the duration of my time. This one still says it's under review. That's what pisses me off so much about it. Then I'm pretty sure like the day after my ban is over, the review's gonna be like, oh, you violated terms of service. You have to be banned, and then they're probably going to slap on another 30 days.
Did you see that meme that somebody made where it's Disney making a movie about Queen Elizabeth and it's just some black woman sitting there?
I haven't seen that meme,
Well,
but
and
I
it was
would
like
not.
some black queen. So I thought it was really funny and I shared it. Facebook flagged me for that, and they were like, independent fact checkers determined that this is not true. Disney is not making. I'm just like, obviously, nobody thinks that it's true. I mean, it would be believable, but it's right outside the realm of believable. It's like right on the line, but it's obviously a joke, and they took it literally, and I disputed it. I haven't gotten anything back, but
You
they
know,
didn't ban me for it. They just said, "Oh, we determined that this was false."
there was one with the individual fact checkers that it wasn't even false. I think one of a friend of mine, I think it was Dustin. He posted something, and Facebook came and fact checked him on it. And in the fact check itself, it said uh, that it wasn't wrong. It was just characterized the wrong way. So why the hell do you fact check it then?
I don't know. They always have something like,
I got fact checked once.
out of context or some BS like
I
that.
posted a graph of mur- of people who were killed by police by race, and I had shown on there that black people were killed by police at a far lesser rate than white people. And I also showed that when it came down to unarmed black people, that I think this was the year 2000 and 2017's crime graphic, and I showed that uh, of unarmed black people it was only 5, and when the numbers came down of justified versus unjustified, it was 2. And Facebook fact checked me on that one, saying that this is missing a lot of racial context about the systemic racism or some bull crap like that. Like this came from the FBI. I pulled it directly from the FBI's website on crime statistics. So again, that's my biggest problem with Facebook. It's not that they have their own rules. It's that they've outsourced all of their resources for moderation to these leftoids. Like, why does all of your fact checkers have to
I
be
think
in the
most of
same
it's done by
pool?
artificial intelligence that's monitored by, obviously, these people are left wing. I mean, that's a given.
Yeah, it's all like, why is it that all of it has to be the same thing? Then did you know they had a report that Google got in trouble because, and I don't really care that Google did this, because I hate receiving these campaign emails from the Republican Party that keeps filling up my promotions box, and it spams the hell out of me. But Google got in trouble because they were sending the vast majority of Republican campaign emails to the trash box versus what they were doing to the Democrat campaign emails. And so apparently, like 75% of Republican emails went straight to spam and trash mail, uh, compared to Democrats, which was only like 15 or 20% that went to the trash. And they
Of
got in trouble.
course,
They got in trouble for that.
everyone knows it's all spam.
I don't really have a problem that they did it. I have a problem that it's that separated in the numbers. But I wish they do it for all of them, because I don't want to receive the emails.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that there is a quantifiable bias.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. It's the quantifiable biases, and that's the point that I get upset with about it. Not because they target me or they target individuals. It's the fact of the matter that it always seems to be targeting just one side of the equation, never the other side. And when it does target the other side, they are so quick to fix the issue. It's like it never was an issue. And I don't know if you've seen that, because you're talking about the Queen. I don't know if you've seen that Don Lemon clip that's going on. Have you seen that one? Where he's talking about, well, the Queen's got a whole bunch of wealth. Should we be getting reparations from the Queen of England?
Oh I did see that.
And finally, a white person who was not afraid to tell the truth, and it took a British person who, you know, we're supposed to be the ones that are unafraid of speaking the truth and speaking free speech on television. But it took a British person to tell Don Lemon, and Lemonades was sitting there dumbstruck, mouth agape, and she's just letting it fly that the British were the ones that single-handedly ended slavery in the Western Hemisphere, basically. So if you want reparations, go back to the source, go back to the mother country, Africa, and get your reparations from the king that sold you, buddy. I was like, yes, I'm so glad somebody finally said it. Wish it was somebody black that said it,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad somebody finally
Unfortunately,
said it.
he's like, you know,
He's the dumbest person on
obviously
TV.
deceased for a very long time. I mean, it was a good way. It was a good direction to take it, but obviously that's not realistic either.
I mean, if you're going to take it from everybody else that's alive in America right now, just take it from all the people that's alive in Africa.
Obviously, obviously no situation is realistic because it's obviously not their fault either.
Take it from.
All those people have been dead for a long time.
They're still in it. They're still involved in the trade practice over there. Just go over there and take all their resources. Just do it. Just do it. But I just found it so funny, because the Queen was pretty much as Quaker as anybody could have been. I mean, one of the few things that we do know about the Queen is how religious and anti British colonies she was. I mean, she sort of rescinded the British colonies, the Commonwealths, and just kind of tried to move British empires back away from that. She is the reason why Hong Kong went back to China. Well, became part of China again. She's kind of
Terrible mistake.
Yeah, really, it really was. But she's kind of trying to pull back, everything. So, if anything, people should be thanking the queen that, or black people, and particularly Americans, should be thanking the queen uh, for her service in trying to civilize African nations to give them prosperity, uh, modern education, uh, modern ports that they can use. Because I mean that, like we said at the start of the show, that was really the biggest hindrance to African culture was the absence of ports, the absence of international trade.
Yeah, but let's be honest here. Nobody's going to make Africa wealthy.
No,
It's just not going to
Africa,
happen.
Africa is destroying itself, and
Most of those countries are so corrupt. It's ridiculous. They'd make us look like
oh
a
yeah,
playground bully.
they many of them have been at war with each other for over 1,000 years at this point. Uh,
That's really the only reason that like world hunger has basically been eradicated, except for the places where politics gets in the way. Like those corrupt countries, the only reason that they're so poor is because of the way they're run.
yes, and uh, they and what we're seeing in Africa, and I know we're trying to end the show, but I just want to mention this here. What we are seeing in Africa, I believe, is a direct parallel to what happened with the Mayans, the Incas, and the Aztecs, and many of the Native American civilizations uh, in South America, is the corruption of their politics and the destruction of their land, particularly farmland, overcultivation, and making the soil more arid. Africa right now, they refuse to stop poaching. They refuse to conserve their agriculture. The Sahara Desert is, as a result, expanding exponentially to the point where the Congo is even in danger for the next 50 years or so of being part of this era, all because they refuse to start conserving what they have and using their tools more appropriately. They're going to turn Africa to a wasteland, probably within the next 200 years or so. You're going to see uh, basically the collapse, just like you've seen of the collapse of the Incas and the Mayas, and that's what I believe anyway. I don't think unless they get a change of, as you said, a change of governance, I
It's
don't I don't see Africa
it's not going to happen.
I don't see Africa developing. Africa's biggest chance of development came in South Africa, and apartheid basically ruined all of that.
South Africa is basically the only country in Africa that's like somewhat well off.
Other than the
But
Ivory
that's
Coast,
I think that's probably because they were under colonial rule for a lot longer.
yeah.
Honestly, I mean, people don't want to admit it, but the countries that were colonized are most of them are better off because of it.
Dr. Thomas Sowell writes about it in his books, Conquest and Cultures, part of his series about cultures and migrations. About when you become conquered, you a lot of times you take from your conquerors because it worked, it was successful, and you use that to build. And when so South Africa is a great example of that. Unfortunately, once the British,
That's because this is controversial, but that's because some cultures are better than others.
yeah, that is true.
Quite plain, simple. And Western culture is the best because we've done more civilization in the world to drag humanity forward, kicking and
And
screaming. And we're
Western
still
culture,
attempting to do it. And sometimes I think we should stop trying.
yeah, I think we should stop trying too. Western culture is the most humane of all cultures. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, the Western people and capitalism is evil." Capitalism is what has allowed us to do
and
all of this.
and the West's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness because it allows for fairness, it allows for dissent, and it has a strong streak of guilt. And so it'll listen when you tell it that. We will listen because we want to fix our problems. We want to address the wrongs of the past and the guilt that the West feels over its own success is corrosive.
Yeah, and I suppose you
It's
could say,
almost like it feels bad about being the greatest.
yeah, well, when you're at the top for so long, it gets lonely, doesn't it? But I suppose you could say that that's probably the reason why, when it comes to empires that have fallen, the West has had the most empires of really any to fall. But they rebuild and faster and bigger and better than any other culture ever has. I mean, we've seen the Minoans, the Cretians, the Greeks, the Romans, the British, the French empires, and the Spaniards, and America now. Uh, the Viking civilization was even highly advanced at uh, a highly advanced culture. But when you go to the Eastern nations or the Middle Eastern nations or the African nations, it just isn't that way. It's not the same way. They don't
You know,
prosper
I would,
in the same veins because they cling to the old way far too heavily, and the old way is power. Power is everything, and that's all they do is fight for power and land when there's other ways of getting that. And you were about to say something.
yeah. Well, so a lot of people say obviously the Western civilization starts pretty much with the Greeks and the Jews. It's like a conglomeration of those two. But I actually would take it. Sometimes I actually take it back even further and say that the West starts with Egypt because the Greeks and the Jews come out of Egypt in some ways.
Yeah, I would go back that far too. But really, I mean, you you could go further. You could probably say that it starts in ancient Mesopotamia because we know the traits of Mesopotamia
Well, I
wound
mean
wound,
that's everywhere.
wound up in Egypt. Egypt probably is the closest to Mesopotamia as far as
Usually it's not included though. Usually we start with the
how to go.
Greeks.
But then,
Whatever. You could include it
as we
though.
said earlier, the Greeks had so much trade involved with Egypt. Uh, the Minoans, the Cretians, they all had so much trade involved with Egypt, and then especially when Rome came into power, and Rome and Egypt had such a great relationship, and there was an opportunity for the Middle East to become like Rome when Xerxes, pretty much tried to take over with the Persian Empire, but again, their motives were different. Everything that the Romans took over, they pretty much had them adopt their civilizations. They adopted some of their cultures, some of those things like that, and they just kept pushing forward and teaching and advancing everything. Uh, and what was it? Wasn't Thomas Jefferson that spoke about uh, the need for education? I can't remember the exact quote. You might know the quote that I'm thinking of. Where Thomas Jefferson said something akin to that the biggest enemy to um, I don't know, I can't remember. I think it was like the biggest enemy to monarchy is an educated mind or something like that. I can't remember the quote that Jefferson said, but I mean the need for education and real education. I don't mean like the education that we have right now, which is not education; it's indoctrination. But the need for education, for critical thinking, for those things like that, those were pretty much the root backbone of Western civilization, even back in the Romans time period. I mean, the reason why we were able to have such a great Western Renaissance was because of the idea of cultivating minds was so prevalent to them. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly would.
Well,
We gotta end it there
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
because it's like
It's 10:51.
almost.
We've been doing the show for 2 hours, which is 2 hours 17 minutes. But we like to thank you guys for joining us here on our show today. If you like our content, like and share our content all over uh, YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Truth Social, Rumble. Um, I don't know. I made you a manager for this page. So maybe you might be able to get the download file after this and put it on Rumble. I don't know. We'll figure it out. If you can't get it, I'll email it to you. And uh, share and download our content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker Audio, Radio Public, anywhere that you can find us. Disturb America with Faison Williams, Disturb America PW. This has been a great show. We're going to see you guys the next.